All right, so hey guys, how are you? Welcome to Personal Finance Rant. And so I guess Emmanuel and I were chatting, and we just thought what would be really good is to actually, really while we've got this time sitting at home, contemplating our thoughts, to actually think about, you know, our relationship to personal finances and the type of things we can do to not only, sort through things now in this time of sort of, crisis and change and all sorts of things, but also how we can relate going forwards. So what we thought we'd do is, just sessions full of information. And I guess today we're covering the government or the UK government stimulus packages. So any thoughts on those, Emmanuel?
Yeah, we are in unprecedented, uncharted, unparalleled times right now, and things are changing on a daily basis, sometimes even on an hourly basis. And what's really been amazing is how the world, the communities are coming together, and how we're going to come through this by pooling our knowledge and our resources and our information and taking stock of where we are right now. And the UK government specifically have done some amazing things over the last week or so and continue to do so. So it's really explaining how those packages are going to help and stimulate the economy right now and going forward in the future, and how we can take advantage of them. So a lot of people don't understand just how amazing these packages are, what's available to them, what they can do, how they can speak to their current employer. Obviously, the government haven't been able to help every single person. They're trying to help as many people as possible. So it's really casting this net, like they do the fishermen with the sea, and they're casting this net out and seeing how many people they can encompass at the same time. So all I can do is commend the UK government for everything they've done and continue to do. And I'm sure there'll be some additional support packages that come through as probably over the next few days.
And I think, the amazing thing is they really have almost taken the lead for the rest of the world. You sort of expect places like Sweden and Finland and Norway and the sort of Scandinavian countries to do that anyway. But you don't normally expect it from the UK, and I think that's where actually Boris got his majority in December. And since then, I would love to say he's made mistakes, but actually, do you know what? On balance, he's done a bloody good job. And I have to say, looking at these packages and how wide the net is cast, it is pretty good. And they've freely admitted that they're going to miss people out, and that actually, they've had troubles in how they're going to pay people, how they're going to get this out, and that's an issue with the data sort of thing. But, they've certainly done the best job they possibly can, I think, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think a couple of things have really been highlighted here. One is what an amazing job both Boris and the Chancellor have actually done so far. But secondly, I think we've got some muscle memory to do with the financial crisis in 2007, 8 and 9, where they acted probably not as quick as they should have done, whereas this time around, they are certainly acting to protect what we have and to make sure that we come out in the strongest possible scenario coming at the end of it. So there's lots of different measures being put in place, and I think the measures they put in place have certainly been unparalleled that I've ever seen before. And I still can't believe some of the packages they put in place, because they are so amazing when you take into account how many people they're looking to cover simultaneously.
Yeah, and I think the amazing thing is normally when we go into a recession, they'll sort of bail out the big, the banks last time and that sort of stuff, but the individuals are left to themselves. But actually, this is almost, it's new uncharted territory that they're moving into. I've never seen it in my lifetime before, but the amazing thing, and I was doing another video today about this particular thing, why it's different from, post-war, post-corona, is because one of the big things they've done is normally have huge unemployment after a war, whereas actually doing what they're doing, they're keeping people in jobs, and they've almost pressed pause on the economy. But that, and what we all hope is that allows us to come out really quickly, which is, certainly the intention. And that way the people that are made redundant and don't have jobs actually have a better chance of getting into jobs, because businesses still exist. It's a bold move, but actually I think my personal feeling is work. I don't know about you. It will work, yeah.
One, it will work, and you're right, they are pressed pause on the economy. And I think the difference this time round is that in 2007 and 8, the government and the UK taxpayer supported all the banking institutions, and now the role is actually reversed. They do have the finances. That's not to say that we all don't have a job and a responsibility to make sure that these institutions survive, because they're also going to suffer through this as well at the same time. And whatever the government puts in place for us now, there's going to be a payback afterwards. So it's like, you know, if it's like you're training and you have your cheat meal, there's going to be some consequences. And I think once we come out the other end of it, again, as a nation, we're going to have to find a way of repaying the debt over time. This is going to be a debt that's going to be having to be paid for quite some time. So there's going to be an after bite at the end of it, but right now let's get through where we need to right now.
Yeah, and you know, there's no free lunches. The thing that I find interesting is it's one of these things where if they stimulate too much, then afterwards we end up with inflation, because basically there's too much money chasing too few goods. If they don't stimulate enough, we can end up in deflation, where there's no money trying to go after the goods that are, you know, available. And I think it's an interesting thing. It's almost like driving a car when you're, you know, a 15-year-old learning to drive, and where you've got to get the clutch and the accelerator right, otherwise you stall the car. And this stimulus package, they've got to really do that. But in some ways, now's not the time to be thinking, no, let's just hold back a bit. I think they needed assertive action. They needed it straight away. Interestingly, you know, I've been following Australia too. And Australia, I think, started by getting it wrong. They actually effectively didn't support the individuals. So lots of businesses just went, you know what, my business has died. I'm just getting rid of all my staff. So then everybody went onto the welfare line. And literally, I think 1 million people in the first week went on welfare. And they've clawed that back, I think, somewhat, in that they've now, you know, I think they're paying $1,500 a fortnight to people. So, you know, it's interesting to see how the different countries around the world are coping with this. But we're all in the same boat, realistically. It's, you know, the same virus, you know, everywhere.
For the government, it really is a tricky situation. It is a fine balance. And I like the analogy you gave about the clutch and the accelerator. It is trying to find that balance. So you don't go backwards, you don't go forward, you stay still for the moment. And then when things change, you really can take your foot off the pedal and hit the accelerator and start moving forward. And that's where I think we need to be. And it really is important that people understand that we really are in this together. Small businesses, employees, large companies, because the only way we're going to come out of this and really going to propel and excel is by working together, by having compromise, by looking at each other's situations. So how can we help in the best possible way that we can? Just, you know, the national help that we talked about, you know, a few days ago, the amount of volunteers, I know we're going to come into that a little bit later, is that we really are finding this community spirit again of helping and supporting each other and recognizing who are really important for us to move forward with.
And I think that's really important too, because if you look at how, you know, decimating Brexit was and how polarizing Brexit was, to actually come back now, you know, to have done the Brexit, if you like, not obviously finished the whole thing, but now to have something that brings us all together. And it is amazing how, you know, for 3 years with Brexit, everything was about the differences, and now everything's about the similarities. And, you know, that's a great thing. I mean, as much as it's in the backdrop of a human tragedy and a, you know, medical tragedy and a, you know, and an economic potential tragedy, you know, it's actually amazing. And I think this will be very good for the country to almost heal or put behind some of the wounds, because you realise Brexit's such a small thing when you compare it to, say, coronavirus and, you know, the amount of deaths and things like that. But yeah, okay, so let's talk. So this is obviously, today we're talking about the stimulus packages and that. But what the real goal here is with the personal finance Rant is really about getting you guys competent in you know, a whole range of things around personal finances. Yeah, and whether that is within a disciplined savings, whether that is about planning for the future, whether that is about cost savings, whether that is how to negotiate a higher income, whether that is, you know, whatever it is, buying, you know, working on assets, creating assets, whichever, you know, whatever it is about, that's, you know, they're the topics we'll cover. Now, and obviously, one of the things we really love you to do is subscribe to our YouTube channels. And if if you've got questions, send them through to us, because then we can deal with them in subsequent videos. Because obviously, we're here for you guys, and I think it's really important that if you guys can interact, we're happy to give freely. I mean, this is the whole idea behind this, is that both Emmanuel and I, we've got years of experience working with people in this thing, and I think it's great, because that amount of knowledge, it's so easy when you sit down and explain to people. It makes sense. This stuff should be taught in schools, but it's not. Because our school system is still built for building the pins or the T model Ford, and unfortunately it hasn't adapted. I think it is slowly, and certainly the interesting thing with the school system is having to go online now has been a big change. I think for everyone, it's been a big change. So that's the if you like the rationale behind this. So it's a carte blanche. Whatever you guys want to cover, we're happy to address it, and we're happy to deal with it, and we're happy to give our thoughts on it. And interesting, we both have different views on things. They're very similar, but Emmanuel may do something for 3 months, I may do it for 30 days. So you'll see the differences. It doesn't mean that one approach is better than the other. It's what we've found works for us and for the people that we work with.
One of the comments that I like has come out quite often is nobody has a monopoly on great ideas. And the whole point of having different people with different experiences, different knowledge, different skill sets will come up with different things that help people in different ways. And again, one of the allergies I had, which was quite good, is can you imagine going to a shop? You see a whole load of clothes, you try some of the clothes on, the ones that you like, you keep, the ones that you don't, you throw away, you disregard. Same with information and knowledge and financial IQ. You take on board the ones that sit with you. If they work with you, you keep them. If they don't, you discard them and try something else. And that's the whole beauty of having different people, different knowledge. We have that ability to share in a different way. And
I will precaution against this is that we've got lots of ideas, and yes, some of them may or may not work for you, but the reality is, listening to us talk about them and doing them is a big difference. It's great for us to talk about them. We love talking about them. We love talking. But if you can take them and go and implement them, that's where the real mastery is, and that's where the real results will be seen. So I think, don't just sit here and take what we say, go and put it in place and try it out and test if it works.
The actual implementation, the taking the action is massive. We're all at home now. We're trying to find different ways to do things at home, and it's I see you got a TV screen behind you, in just the same way you can look on the TV to see all about fitness, but if you don't do the exercise yourself, you're not going to get the benefit. And the same with what we're doing here. We can share the information, but if you don't take it on board, you don't do it, you're not going to see the results. And we want you to get the results. We've been given a most amazing opportunity to be at home and to find new creative ways of how to create money, to create income, to create cash flow, to increase our knowledge. And for a lot of people that are going to be furloughed workers, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, you'll get having the opportunity to be paid and to learn new skills at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the things, in fact, I did another video today, which was all about, once in a lifetime opportunity to redefine your relationship with work, with health, with finances, with whatever it is. I mean, the whole reason behind this here now, we're sitting here, is because, we wanted to get across the opportunity to redefine your relationship with whatever it is, So great. Okay, so let's get into it. So we want to do a daily, just a quick summary of where we're at in terms of coronavirus. So you'll see on the screen, 785,000 cases, 37,000 deaths. I've put there the only countries with 10,000 or more cases. Now, interestingly, Turkey's been added today from yesterday, but the reality is I started with 100, I then went to 1,000, I've now changed it to 10,000 because they just wouldn't fit on the screen. And that's over the course of 10 days that I've had to change that. So, things are moving rapidly. One of the good things about a lot of the finance stuff is that a lot of the things that we talk about are not things that change. These are universal principles and they stay there forever. But yeah, anyway, that's the sort of update for coronavirus. We can talk about the UK, 22,000 cases. What do we got? 14,000 deaths, 180 from yesterday. It's too soon to say, but to be fair, it's not. I mean, the cases are increasing, that's for sure. But I hope that with all these, the lockdown, the social distancing, that sort of stuff, that we're able to shorten that curve. There's certainly increased capacity. I mean, it's been pretty impressive. I was pretty impressed when I heard China talking about, 2 hospitals in 10 days, and then we've gone and pulled, I think it's 5 different hospitals with the 8 or 9,000 capacity, in 2 weeks, pretty much. It's a pretty good thing. And I think it just shows you how, when there's a singularity of purpose, we can achieve anything, and I guess in terms of your finances, if you focus on what you want and you put your energy towards that, that's what you'll achieve. And I think that's, part of the goal setting thing that we'll talk about.
Very much so. What we've only done with the hospitals in that short period of time has been nothing other than spectacular. And the people coming together, again, the community spirit. We are at war with the invisible enemy. That really is true. We can't see the enemy, and we're all pulling together to see how we can help each and every one of us in one shape or form, whether it be with our finances, with our food, support. We're all doing a little bit along the way to try and make a difference.
Yep, 100%. So let's get into the government support schemes and have a look at them. So we've broken them into pretty much employed, self-employed, and company invested owners, if you like. So it's interesting. With my business, we have about 40 employees, and of that, I think about 25 of them are still working full time and actually working even harder now. And we've furloughed about 15. The sales business that I have, the property business, we've furloughed all bar one employee there, because realistically, property sales aren't happening right now. There's not a lot happening there. So, we took advantage of the thing. I think maybe before we talk about that, I think some people have given this stigma that you shouldn't be using these things, and it's almost like the welfare, you shouldn't be. It's like, no, these are here for these circumstances. Now I'm not big for abuse, but actually it's amazing. These things are here for you to use. So that's why we want you to get you up to date with them. And it's very hard to put down the huge detail here, because they're changing all the time, and there's more information coming out, and the government will say one thing and then the banks will implement that, and depending on which bank you bank with will determine how that turns out. But yeah,
here's the truth. What the government are trying to do, they understand that they do not want people to be massively unemployed. It changes the sentiment of the country, the confidence of each individual. What they're trying to do is what you said, is put it on pause. So effectively, the people are still employed on a reduced salary, and if they're at home, they're not going to be spending as much anyway, because they're going to have, not going to be the things that they do normally. So when we come out at the end of this crisis, out of this pandemic, they will have the resources to kickstart again their businesses, as if it's like going on summer holiday. You go on holiday for 2, 3, 4 weeks, you come back, you start work again. So look at this as an extended holiday, where you're able to do the things that you couldn't normally do, spend time on your home, time on your finances, on your family, on your relationships, in lots of different areas, and you come back refreshed because you haven't worked for all this amount of time, that you can actually start sprinting when we come back into business. That's what the government wants to see. That's why they're putting these measures in place, to allow us to come out of this really strong and really fast. And that's why they put this unprecedented kind of support in place. And that's what people need to understand. It's to allow us this pause and to then get started very fast again. And that's why they put these measures in place, whether you're an employee, whether you're self-employed, or whether your businesses. And I said previously, there will be a few people that fall outside of that, and I'm one of those people. However, the vast majority are going to be looked after and covered, and that's the most important part.
Yeah, 100%. And I think use these systems, get to know these systems, and the other thing is, just because you're furloughed doesn't mean, for instance, that you don't have access to maybe universal credits, or it's not a case of there's one solution that will make up everything. It may be multiple things. You may have a business and you're employed, and you can access this here for your business and that here for yourself. There is people missing out. Emmanuel's missing out, so I'm missing out. Because technically I'm Singapore. I'm in Singapore. Not UK. So great, but but actually my businesses can benefit from that. So we're still benefiting directly, you know. But look, the furlough for me, when they come out with that, I mean, I must admit, I almost jumped, you know, for joy. For me, it was a master stroke, because what it did, as a business owner who employs people, I was sitting there going, wow. And if you think about it, in our sales business, we made sales last month. Most of those sales are pulled out now. So we had all the expenses, but the income's gone. Then this month, we haven't made any sales. There's a few, but realistically, compared to what we did, any sales, and there's still the expense. So I've got 2 months of expenses, you know, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of pounds there that potentially is down the drain. Now, I would be sitting there going, if that continues, I can't fund that indefinitely, so I would need to let people go. But what the government did by furloughing, they basically changed my mind. So I went, actually, I don't need to let them go. I can keep them on, furlough them. An amazing thing. And you know, I mean, that's the same thinking that I'm sure was going through hundreds of entrepreneurs, thousands of entrepreneurs around the country. And what it meant was that you didn't have this massive weight on the welfare system, that you've actually, you know, kept people in jobs. Awesome. But anyway, it's 80% up to $2,500, you know, and the amazing thing there is that, you know, that for most people, I think it's, I can't remember the statistic, but that covers quite a few people, you know, in that situation, which is great, you know. But the interesting thing, the choices you really got are you continue working. I mean, we've got most of, you know, more than half our staff are actually working full-time under normal employment contract. Nothing's changed, apart from the fact that their business has changed a little bit because they're dealing more with tenants and landlords and investors who are concerned and worried and don't know what to do, and, you know, that sort of thing. Whereas normally they'd be doing work like viewings and move-ins and move-outs and things like that. That's not happening. So their jobs changed, and I'm sure your job's changed too, if you're still working. But then the other side is the furlough side, but you've also, as an employee, got the universal credits. You know, now what I'd say with all of these things is go and read the detail. The government website is there. It gets updated. So, you know, what we don't want to do is go into the detail here too much, and then tomorrow they come up with new stuff and it's totally defunct. Yeah. Go to the government websites. In the bottom of this thing, when we post it, we'll give the links to various places that you can go to if you're worried about debt, if you're worried about, you know, having to negotiate with your tenant, landlord, those sort of things. There's lots of resources that are being produced now. So, yeah. Other side from employee, you know, time to pay. So, you know, if you've got a tax bill due, then, you know, they're allowing you time to pay that. And one of the things, I think the big thing here, there's no free lunches. They're not giving away free money. Some industries are getting grants and things, but not so much. Yeah. Most of it is either you're going to loan it or you're still going to have to pay it back, but it's deferred. Yeah. Certainly, as a business, we're looking at the, you know, we'll talk about the C-bills in a sec, but the C-bills is the incentive scheme. We're looking at that, but it's a loan and we have to pay it back. So I've got to be conscious that if I take it, I have to pay it back, which means it's got to come out of future profits. You know, yeah, so yeah.
There's a couple of bits I want to talk about in terms of the self-employed, in terms of the tax bill and if they're VAT registered. Yep. That's quite massive. So your tax bill, if you're due a tax bill in July, you can actually defer that until January next year. So if you've accounted for the tax, which most self-employed people hopefully have, you've got that money sitting, or part of it sitting ready to be paid in July. What the government is saying, you don't have to pay that. So that gives you the ability to use some of that resource that you've had to help you to cash flow. The other part that's really important is your VAT return. Again, they're allowing you to defer the VAT. So again, you can use part of that resource to help you and your business during that period of time. So as we go through these different videos, we're going to talk about how they can actually tap into those resources and how they can use them more effectively to actually grow income as well as savings during this sort of period of time. But it's really important that people understand that money they've made available for you to tap into that. However, as you quite rightly say, that's not a free lunch. It's money that's got to be repaid back. But for now, they can use it as an emergency fund, like an emergency overdraft, I guess. They're giving you your own overdraft through the VAT and through your income tax to allow you over this really difficult period of time.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, it's the great thing about it, it wasn't just one thing. You know, they've looked at multiple things. And really now there's a real picture. it's interesting. I live streamed the budget when Rishi came out and gave the budget, and I was live streaming, and it was amazing because I was kind of like, wow, that's amazing, wow, geez, and it was kind of like, it was my face, was telling all of it, because what they basically said and what he was saying was, we'll do whatever it takes to keep the economy moving and keep going, whatever it takes. And when a politician says they'll do whatever it takes, most of the time you go, whatever, ignore that comment. But actually, to be fair, looking at what they've done, they've actually backed it up. And I have to say, they're bloody impressive to do that, But yeah, no, so if we look more in the self-employed side of things, so the CBILS, basically, so that is coronavirus business interruption loan scheme, okay? And basically what that means is that you can apply to it will probably be your normal bank that you go to, because they'll know you best. And then what the thing you've got to prove, and this is the big thing, is you've got to prove that you need the money because of the coronavirus interruption. If your business was shattered anyway, then the likelihood is you're not going to get the funding, and they'll probably let you pass into, liquidation or administration or whichever. So it's not a case of bad businesses will get funding for nothing, but good businesses that have been affected by this are likely to get funding, And what I'd recommend is, they do say, if you don't need the cash, it's open until September 1st. I think it's 1st of September. So you've got time, you don't have to take it straight away. But I'm always one that says, I'd rather have a war chest now and know I've got it in my bank sitting there than waiting until I need it and then finding out the criteria changed or whatever. So, and that was the same with the mortgage payment holidays, things like that. I want to build that war chest and have that there. That's just the way I'm built. A lot of people aren't. A lot of people are happy just to chill out and, go along with it.
Yeah, so it's really important people understand what this loan is. It's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a business interruption loan. So if your business was already profitable, it was surviving and thriving, and the coronavirus, COVID-19 actually has prevented that from happening, the government and the banks want to support that. So the beauty of it, two things. One, you can have interest free for 12 months. And more importantly, you can also have with certain banks, 12 months repayment deferral. So you can actually not have to pay any monthly payments as well as interest for 12 months. That's massive. Now, the term, again, we're putting a link at the bottom, is between 1 and 6 years. There's 40 mainstream banks that are going to be able to do it for you. But more importantly, the first port of call is your bank, because they already know you. They know your banking habits. They know your business. And they're more likely to make the loan to you than another institution. So that's really important that people know first and foremost.
But the same credit, they're still going to do credit checks. They're still going to go through this process. What I've found, I've got the application there. It's a much simpler application. Yeah. So it's not like 40 pages or anything like that. But you still have to provide details. So you still got to have a business plan. You still got to show how you're going to pay this back effectively. But effectively, on one of my businesses that we've already applied for. So what we've done is we've put one business in to see how it turns and learn the lessons from there, and then basically then put the other businesses in if we need to. So we'll see how we go. But it's very simple, and they are making it simple because they want you to get that. The other side of it is that with this thing is that it's 80% secured by the government, but that doesn't mean that if I borrow the money, there's security for me. There's security for the bank. In other words, if I don't pay, the bank gets up to 80% security. Yeah. So that doesn't mean that the bank won't ask for security from you for the other 20% or potentially, more. We haven't worked that out yet, and I haven't actually said too much about that. But they probably will still ask for security, personal guarantee or whatever.
Yeah, it's very likely that a bank will still ask for some sort of security. Part of the loan application, you've got to send in your assets and liability, proof of payment, and how you anticipate your business will be able to make the payments after COVID virus is actually over. So that's really important that you put that as part of your business plan. That's part of the actual the question. And your first point of call is your business relationship manager at your bank. They are the ones that have the forms. They are the ones that actually help you to complete them. and to submit the application for you and guide you through the application at the same time, so that whichever bank that you're with, that's where you need to go. If you bank with Lloyds, Barclays, NatWest, that is your first point of call.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And so just moving on. So look, there's the other side with self-employed. There's lots of specific industry grants that are available. So one of our mates is in hotels, and so there's grants for entertainment. I think it's entertainment, tourism, and
hotels, hospitality,
retail, hospitality. Hospitality is the word I was after. There's grants there for them of between 10 and 25, and there's all those sort of things. I won't go into the detail of lots of those because obviously they may not apply to you, but go online and check them out, because it may be a case of just a simple request and you get 10 grand sent to your bank, which isn't a bad thing. The other side of it is, business rates, fantastic business rates. At the end of the day, I got another mate who, he was saying he pays $1 million. He's got multiple sites, $1 million in business rates that he's been given free for next year. So that's $1 million cash that can stay in the business. It doesn't need to be paid out. It's a huge thing, especially lots of businesses have been complaining about business rates and unfairness of them and all that sort of stuff. To get a year off them, is a huge thing. And if it only lasts 3 months, this thing, to have another 9 months, that is a good way to get back onto your feet. Add then CBILS and these sort of things. There's some real stimulus. So when the virus is done, when the medical side is done, and the human tragedy is done, the economics, can come back quickly, and that's really what everybody's aiming for and everybody wants.
I mean, as you and I are talking about this, the more we're talking about it, the more it's like unbelievable, all these different incentives the government put in place. And I just want to talk about what you just said about the business rates. So there's two parts. So if you have business rates, even if your business is business zero rated, the fact that it would have had business rates, you can qualify for up to £10,000 grant as a small business. So lots of hairdressers, greengrocer shops, all of those businesses will have that, as well as the benefit of not paying business rates for a year. So that really is an unbelievable package for small business owners and shop owners. So that's really quite massive.
Absolutely. And just on that side too, one of the things we're doing, we've got 2 sites. We've got a Lincoln and a London site. So both those we've gone to the landlord, and because we're not using the office, so they're not using services, and they're not, it's not costing as much. So we've asked them for either rent-free period, which is obviously the first part of the negotiation, which was promptly, frowned upon. But we've said, well, what's the response? And so we're waiting now, but potentially we may get 30, 40, 50% off, I don't know, off our rent that we owe, by negotiation. Or it may be deferred, that we get 3 months off, or, who knows what they're going to come back with. Hopefully they're not watching, but the great thing about that is, and this is one thing I'm finding is, everybody's in this together, and so everybody's dealing with it in a different way. And for the most part, we find people are being reasonable, especially the tenants and landlords we deal with and the investors we deal with. Most people are being, reasonable about this. So it's quite good.
Yeah, listen, everybody's suffering in one shape or form, just like the virus that has no, agenda other than anybody, whether your race, your color, your religion, ethnicity, it doesn't really care. And as a multicultural society, as we are, that's one of the great strengths about the UK, is that we have so many different races, religions, all in this melting hotspot, where we all come together. This is a time where we all shine in our different ways, to find different ways to help each other in different ways. We're all going to have to be flexible to be able to come to survive right now, to come out the other side, and to start thriving when we do come out the other side. Because this is not just about surviving. Surviving is just right now, but it's also about thriving when we come out the other side.
And I think that's a really important point too, because if you're just sitting there and you're stressing and worrying about today and tomorrow, then the problem is it's going to take you longer to come out. One of the things I'm saying to all the business clients we have, and the guys that I work with and their businesses and the various businesses that I own, and that is, I'm saying, use this time now to work out what happens when we come out of this, and have that plan ready. And if you need to pivot, if you need to create systems or structures or train people or whatever it is, get that happening now while you've got the time. So it's, you're straight out and running. I mean, it's an amazing thing. But so many people, they're afraid of this social media, but they know they need to do it for their business. Well, now's the time to learn it. Now's the time to do it. Now is the time to take that time and do it. And actually, for another side of it is, it actually may be, as you said before, a time to actually just kick back and relax and take some time out, so you've got the energy to fire again as soon as you come out. Because let's face it, we've all been running so friggin' hard for the past, 10, 20 years, whatever it is, and getting more and more busy. And I think that's part of the redefining the relationship with whatever, career, health, wealth, whatever, so yeah. So let's move on to the company side. So companies is a bit of a mixed pot, because obviously you've got to look at your company profits over the previous 3 years, or if you've only been going 2 years, then 2 years. And the problem with not a problem with that, that's great. It's up to 250, so it's up to 2,500 pounds. And it's 80% again, so it's the same as the employed one, or very similar, except it's on profits, okay? And the other side of it is that you can only access it if you're a director as pay as you earn. So if you earn dividends, they're not counted. That's one of the areas where you fall through the net, which unfortunately for most company directors, they have a small pay as you earn, and the rest they take in dividends, because that's the most tax efficient way of doing it. So that's where, if your boss is walking around and you're part of a small business, he might have his head down going like this, because he's like, bloody hell, they missed me out. That may change. One of the things they have said is it's so difficult for them to work out what a business is, where the businesses are, and all that sort of stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, so there's two parts to that. So the first part is that you've got to be earning profits of 50,000 or less. That's quite important. The second part is that you're not going to get paid that grant for 3 months. So they're going to pay it as a lump sum. So if it is 2,500, contrary to what most people think, you don't get 2,500 in 3 months' time. You'll get paid a lump sum of 7,500 in 3 months' time. So that's really quite important. But there are thresholds, and you're quite correct. If you actually have an income on PAYE, and the vast majority of your income is through dividends, then you're not going to be covered on this. Also, if your income is more than 50,000, you're not going to be covered on this. They haven't prorated it to say, well, we'll cover the first 50,000, the rest of it we won't. So that might change again. So there's a lot of things in here that are still moving. However, if you are a company director, we've now had confirmation that you can make yourself a furloughed worker. Yep. So what you do pay yourself on PAYE, you could take 80% of that as a furloughed worker. So you've still got some income. In addition to that, you've got the other benefits, you've got the universal credits, you've got the other links that government have actually put in, and we're going to put the different links at the bottom so you can read the one specifically to you. But the measures are changing and the support packages are changing on a daily basis. So every day I go on, I refresh it, I look at the most up-to-date, see what else has been added, what other clarification. So I got through yesterday a whole government 22-page report, all to do with the support to do with landlords and tenants. So as they're updating this, as they're defining all the terms and terminologies and the rules and regulations, they're updating it accordingly. And I suggest that everybody does that on a regular basis for areas that concern them specifically, because it will change on a daily basis.
And I think one of the good things with the difference between the furlough of an employed person and a company is that in a furlough of an employed person, you're not allowed to work. But as a company, you're allowed to continue working. So you can furlough yourself and still work, which is really obvious, because without you, the business is not going to work. But yeah, so that's quite good. But I think, look, that, for me, that's fantastic, So yeah. So let's just let's talk about the mortgage holiday. So, so this has been a great thing for those with mortgages, okay? There was a bit of misunderstanding in that I think lots of tenants thought that it meant they could get rent free. There's nothing free about it, yeah? What happens is the 3 months payments are just simply added to the loan, and then if your loan is over the next 20 years, you'll repay that over the next 20 years, obviously with interest, because the interest bit will add to your balance will increase. So you not only pay that amount back, but the interest on that amount over the entire period, okay? So, you've got to decide whether you want it. But for myself, I thought, you know what, I'd rather have the money in the bank right now or over the next 3 months of payments that I don't have to make. And also it allows them to be flexible too. If the tenants are calling saying, I've been made redundant, I can't make a payment, can we come to an arrangement, So, yeah, sorry?
Yeah, so the important part with that is that, the average mortgage in the UK is about £500 to £600. So if we work on £500 a month as a mortgage payment, if you're taking a payment holiday for 3 months, you're adding £1,500 to the overall mortgage balance. And as you quite rightly said, the interest will then be recalculated on that new balance over the remaining term of your mortgage. However, there's nothing stopping in 6 or 12 months' time, when you do get back on your feet again, to make an overpayment to repay that back down again, so you stop paying interest. And quite rightly, the amount of interest that you're paying, if you've got a mortgage of 2 or 3%, you're paying 2 or 3% on the £1,500. In the scheme of things, is minuscule compared to the benefit of having that £1,500 in your bank right now to help you with really important, essential expenditure like heat and food and shelter.
Yeah, 100%. And look, so I went through all my mortgages. It took a bit of time. It took me about 5 hours all up, to be fair. I've got quite a few mortgages. But the reality was, going through the process, there was really easy ones, which I actually did a video where I shocked myself. I started out doing it, and the first one I did in under 3 minutes, and I literally recorded it. And you'll see my face. I'm like literally going, oh my God, what's going on here? And it was literally that easy. Yeah. A few of the back end ones weren't so easy. I had to phone them up, and then I got told, actually, you're not urgent, so therefore they'll get back to you sometime this month, because I'm going to miss my payment this next one for April, and so they'll do May as the first one, but they have to call me back and go through whatever. So there's a varying range from really easy to I don't know right now, because they haven't actually.
So can I add a little bit of meat to that?
Yeah.
So because most of the lenders have been inundated, what I would suggest, if your mortgage payment isn't due for another 5 or 6 days, you leave it. It's only in the last 5 or 6 days that allows the phones to be freer, the internet to be freer, for them to take on board the people whose mortgage payments are coming up right now in the next few days. So if you can wait until you've got 5 or 6 days before your next mortgage payment, that would be the ideal time to do it. The other part that's really important to understand, because this is an initiative with the government, if you do take advantage of the payment holiday, remember it's not a freebie, it's a payment holiday, it will not affect your credit. So Experian, Equifax, similar credit agencies, because it's been agreed with the government, it won't affect your credit. And your credit rating is specifically for times like this when things are difficult. So by adding it to your mortgage won't have an impact. So that's really important that you understand that, so you can take avail of this if you need to. Obviously, if you're earning income, your salary hasn't reduced, then just carry on paying everything as normal. You're one of the lucky ones. If you're in, the NHS and you're earning income, or your other kind of businesses where you're being paid and it hasn't been affected you, then just carry on paying as normal.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing is, with that whole process, like I went through that whole process, it actually was relatively easy. I mean, I was expecting to get a lot more questions and a lot more detail, but literally it was so easy. The other side is that we need to, if you're currently behind in your mortgages, you can't get a payment holiday through this facility, but you still have the, payment difficulties avenue. So that the payment difficulties way may affect your credit rating. Yeah, but the payment holiday one won't affect your holiday. Okay, so that's, there's two different streams. The payment difficulties way is always available and has always been available. In fact, for the most part, the payment holiday has always been available too. Just maybe once a month or once a year, you take it. Yeah, once a year. Not once a month. So it has been there. So, I think years ago I took one with Northern Rock, and I forget what it was. But they offered it to me. I was ringing them up about something else, in fact, a remortgage. And they said, rather than a remortgage, why don't we just give you a payment holiday? And I was like, yeah, well, give me a payment holiday. And then I did the remortgage anyway, but yeah. But yeah. So guys, it's there, these facilities are here, so definitely use them. Now, let's move on to the other side of the thing, which is rent holidays, okay? So I think this one, what you're gonna realize is as a tenant, you're in a contract with the landlord through the agent. So actually, the two parties, if you like, to the thing, to the contract are the tenant and the landlord. They're not changing, yeah? So the reality is, if you want to have a rent holiday because you're in difficulty, you've been made redundant, whatever it is, furloughed, then it has to be a negotiation. So it's a negotiated holiday, but you still have to pay it back. So whatever that rent is going to be added, and yeah, the landlord may give you 3 months, may give you 6 months, may give you whatever they negotiate. But obviously a mortgage is over 20 years, whereas a tenancy agreement might only be over a year. So you've got to be careful that you don't go, yeah, okay, I want a payment holiday. And then, that $500 a month you pay in rent, all of a sudden has to be paid off over the next 3 months. And you're now paying $1,000 rent, per month to catch up, because the eviction's still there, everything's still there. All it changed was the notice from 2 months has changed to 3 months have to be given now.
So can I add something to this? This is really quite important. The government announcement was very specific. So it was specific that no tenant should avail themselves of a rental payment holiday unless they were adversely affected by COVID-19. Now, what that actually means is, because of all the different support systems they've put in place, like furloughed workers, to give support for the self-employed, to help businesses, to put in places the different grants, to change universal credit and how quickly you can apply and the different loans that you can get, the vast majority of people will not be affected in terms of their rent. That's why they did it. The government have been very measured in all the things they've done because they don't want a knock-on effect in every different area. So, as you quite rightly said, the tenant and the landlord have to negotiate it between them. It does get added to the remainder of their mortgage, of their rental term. So if their rent is $500 a month and they've got 6 months left on their rental after it finishes, that £1,500 is going to have to be spread over the remaining 6 months. So that's the first thing. So it's not a freebie, or they might have to extend the contract. Secondly, the tenant actually has to prove financial difficulty by either a letter from the employer or their PAYE or direct result of COVID-19 having an impact to not pay all of their rent. It might have an impact to pay some of the rent, but not necessarily all of the rent. So it's very important that landlords and tenants know that is what's in place. Yeah. And as you quite rightly said, it doesn't mean eviction won't happen. It just means it's been extended by another month at this moment in time. So,
and the other thing, is there's the money claim on lines now. So it used to be very hard. You had to virtually go to court if you wanted to claim the money back from the courts. Now with the money claim online, if you leave a tenancy and you owe money at the end of that, the landlord for about $60 could make an application online to claim that money back. And if you, assuming you don't show up or you lose that, which you're likely to, because most agents will have the ability or the evidence to do that, then that would cause a CCJ, which could wreck your credit rating. So you've got to be careful about what you do here, and that's where I think there's has to be a conversation, and be very careful about doing that, because even if that 500 rent you say, well, 250 I'll pay and the 250 I'll add on, that still means you're going to be paying 750, afterwards. Yeah, so you've got to be really careful about that.
So the government again have been very indicative on what they would actually like. So they've said they want the landlord and tenant to be pragmatic, and they want them to work together during this process. So we've talked about this in all areas. The only way we're going to get through this as a country, as a nation, as businesses, is to work together and not take advantage in each and every area. So landlords will have, in addition to the mortgage, other bills that they have to service. They'll have the gas certificates, electrical certificates, maintenance, repairs, lots of other things that allow you to stay in the comfort of your home. And by you not paying the rent, and they might have more than one property, so that's happening to multiple properties rather than just one which you have, it's going to have a really massive knock-on detrimental effect. And that's why the government have put these packages in. They said you need to contact your landlord at the earliest possible opportunity to make them aware that you might have some financial difficulty, that you come up with some sort of payment plan and not just not pay altogether. The support packages have been put in place to help every single homeowner or renter. So the mortgage payment holidays on your mortgage. For the renter, if they can't afford to pay all or part of their rent, they've got the ability to take the rental holiday after they've sought all the benefits that the government have put in place, not instead of.
Yeah, 100%. And that's so key, the point you made, communication and communicating as soon as possible, because, landlords, I mean, as much as a lot of people in the media are sort of making out that landlords are making all this money and it's so easy. And, the reality is there are a lot of bills, a lot of regulations, a lot of compliance that they have to pay bills for, and if they haven't got that rent coming in, it's unlikely they can afford to pay all these things, including their mortgages, so, I mean, in most cases, the mortgage might be 70%, there's a 30% more bills, there. It's not huge profits, that's certainly not.
This is my real fear coming at the end of COVID-19, is if the landlord and tenants don't work together during this process, you're going to find an influx of properties coming on the market from landlords that don't want to be in the business anymore because it's not worth their while. So we're going to have a supply shortage of properties at the same time. So it's really important that we work together so we come out of this as best as we can.
And I have to say, we manage over 1,250 properties. And I have to say, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of uncertainty, but when we sit down and when my team sits down and talks to both parties, landlords and tenants, it's amazing the compassion and the understanding and the understanding that we need to work together. And I think that's really impressive. I think, the unfortunate thing is there's people out there and there's lobbyists out there that almost pitch landlords versus tenants, and that is not the case. To be fair, the landlords we have, maybe we're just gifted in having great landlords, but we have a great set of landlords and we have a great set of tenants. And sure, right now we're getting into some emotional people who are, yelling at staff and doing things like that. And that's not just from the tenant side, that's from the landlord side, who don't understand that the tenants lost their job. But, normally when you, talk it through, they calm down and we sort it out. There's always a way to work this out. And I think that's really important. And I think on that note, unless you've got anything else to add, what I want to do is finish, I guess, the session on a bit of inspiration. And I think, we've sort of been talking about it a bit, now. And I think, the real, I mentioned sense of community. There's a massive sense of community now. And I love that, the fact that everyone was out clapping for the NHS the other day. Like that sort of stuff is fantastic because Brexit has been very damaging to the sense of self, and I think that this is a great way, crisis is always a good way to bring people back to what's important. And that's what we're seeing now, which is fantastic. I think one of the other points, which is the virtual culture, it's amazing how we're very quickly had to adapt to talking to each other through Zoom and through, webinars and through live streams and all sorts of things like that. I mean, for a few of us that have been using this for a while, it's relatively easy. But for a lot of people, I mean, I love some of the memes coming out where people are, going to the toilet with their laptop and forgetting that they're actually things like that. But that, that's going to happen. But it's amazing how quickly we've adapted. Mind you, my internet hasn't adapted yet to the fact that there's so many people on the internet. But anyway, that's fine. And look, the government's behind us with their support. Volunteers, 560,000 volunteers in just a few days to help the NHS out. That's amazing to get that level. I mean, we can't get people out to vote, but we can get them out to help, other people, which is fantastic. And I think, companies, tenants, landlords, agents, we're all, working hard at this, and most people haven't got the exact answers because the exact answers are still coming, from the government down. But they are getting there, and they are, I have to say, they're moving pretty quickly for what was a big bureaucratic dinosaur. that have been, 10 years of austerity, it's amazing how they've been able to pivot and really perform, very quickly, so yeah.
It's amazing as a society, as a country, when push comes to shove, when our back's against the wall, how we come out helping and supporting each other and fighting for everything that we believe in, in our society, our culture, our finances. We're just here to help and support each other. And the amount of messages that are coming through, I'm in a really nice block of flats. We've set up a community WhatsApp. Everybody's trying to help each other. What can we get you? There's some elderly people in our home that can't go out at all. So you've got this sense of community that we haven't really experienced since probably Charles and Diana got married. I mean, that's a long time ago, and that poor guy's got the COVID too now. So it's the first time we're really coming together as a nation to want to help and support each other, look out after each other. And hopefully, even after this is going to be something that's going to stay, because we're going to create friendships and allegiances and alliances that we've never had before.
Mm. And I think, you're right. I mean, I would argue that it's amazing to see how actually the UK comes together when there's a sporting competition, and there's a sole focus on one goal. And it's a bit like this now, so yeah, Charles and Dana, but mate, I'm a bit younger than that. I don't know. I was probably a teenager back then. But, no. But look, guys, I think, hopefully that gives you a bit of a broad strokes look at everything. Any questions, send them through. Make sure you go onto our channels and subscribe. This was supposed to be a live stream, but we basically couldn't get the live stream working, so we'll sort that out overnight, and we'll do that on Thursday. But yeah, so subscribe, ask questions. Anything you need, we can cover that. Personal finance. So yeah, next we'll get down and dirty with a bit more of the disciplines and the cost savings and the ways to do those sort of things, and the structures and the thinking, the mindset.
And the fun stuff about saving money, making money, spending money. It's all going to still be there. Yep,
100%. Yeah. All right, guys. So we'll leave it there. Fantastic. Have a great day. Remember, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay at home right now.
See you soon. Take care.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.